Hello out there in TV land, and by TV land I mean Facebook, which is kind of the new TV, I guess.
It's ruining everything. I want to leave Facebook shortly.
And starting now, it's going to ruin your night. Welcome to the show. I am Luke Watson.
I'm Roddy McInnes.
And we are here to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. Movies that might have been.
It's near and dear to my heart what we're going to talk about in the way that a shard of ice pierces through it. We're here to talk about the Justice League film.
But not the Justice League film that's coming out this week. We're talking about the one that could have come out 10 years ago.
The better version.
Well, it remains to be seen what the new one is like, but we do know that the Justice League movie that Warner Brothers greenlit in 2007 would have been directed by George Miller, who went on to direct Mad Max Fury Road.
Well, I mean, I think he's more famous for Lorenzo's Oil. Surely, that's a hell of a film.
Well, he's a hell of a director.
He is. He's a phenomenal director, and he would have been so much better than he who shall not be named.
Zack Snyder.
No! He who shall not be named.
We're going to talk about Zack Snyder later, but first,
please follow, share this, by the way, and we want your comments. Please, we interact, I interact. Luke interacts, and we all have a good old time. Please harass us from the internet.
So I just want to take you back.
Yes.
I want to paint a picture.
Please do.
The year is 2007, right? We are 1 year away from Marvel launching their cinematic universe with Iron Man.
And
2008.
Controlling everything from there on out.
Okay. Batman has begun, and The Dark Knight is in production.
Where are they?
Superman has returned.
Oh, that's the Brandon Routh version.
Brandon Routh. Bryan Singer. He left X-Men to do Superman Returns. It came out. It disappointed, but it was still, at this point in 2007, they still were planning a sequel for 2009. Right. They hadn't abandoned that yet. Smallville.
With Tom Welling.
Tom Welling in Smallville is Clark Kent. He's in year 6 of 10. And I just want to let that sink in for a second. Smallville was on the air for 10 years.
I was unaware of that. My knowledge of Smallville, no, it didn't come to Scotland.
Tom Welling started playing a teenager in high school, and I think he was 45 by the time Smallville
Have you
ended.
seen him lately?
Yes.
He's added to the cast of Lucifer, the ill-fated.
That's another DC Comics universe.
Well, yeah, but in so much as that it's just got the name, it's nothing like it. I've stopped watching it. I'm a big Lucifer fan, and I've stopped watching. Tom Welling has not aged well. He looks.
Go eat. What?
Because I've got a lot of hate.
Why you got to rain on Tom Welling's parade? He just got a new job.
It's not just Tom Welling.
Tom Welling.
I'm quite sick right now, and
I'm proud of you, Tom Welling.
All right, as long as he's got your approval, that's all he's been after.
You had a good run
all this way through.
All right.
Yeah. So there's lots of
there's a lot of things
across the board.
George Miller
of Lorenzo's Oil fame
had recently released a little movie called Happy Feet. Right?
Yeah.
It was a big success. And before that, he had done Babe 2, Pig in the City.
A classic.
Right? So George Miller is not
it's up there with Shawshank Redemption.
Well known as the Mad Max Fury Road guy that we know him as today. He was the Happy Feet and Babe guy.
Well, for a period of years, but I don't think he ever lost that.
Oh no! I mean, he
wrote
always,
and created and directed and like the first Mad Max.
The first Mad Max movies way back in the day.
I think it was only just the first one.
He was involved with all three. If he didn't direct, he was.
He was credited for the character. But I don't think he was.
But
anyway.
It's Hollywood. It's what have you done for me lately? And if that's Happy Feet, then Warner Brothers is also happy because that made money. But anyway, what happened was Warner Brothers recognized they had these DC superheroes, some of the most valuable intellectual property in the world, and they wanted to exploit that.
Rightly
and so they greenlit a Justice League live action movie.
Called?
But it was called Justice League Mortal.
Based on?
And it was based on a lot of comics.
Yeah, actually. You gave me, Luke was kind enough to send me a reading list for this, and all things I've read before, and I went over them again. They've all blended into one in my mind. It's now Infinite Identity Crisis on Multiple Earths or something.
That pretty much nails it. So it was very faithful to the comic books, which, again, before Iron Man hit the screen and became a huge success, that's kind of like a big gamble.
Yeah, right? That's what I've always liked about DC over Marvel. They are risk takers. They killed Robin. That was a hell of a thing at the time. They and not even in a, because the thing is, Marvel did kill off a character. They killed off Bucky Barnes, who's Steve Rogers, but that was more like
No, killing Robin, child murder.
Yeah,
is a serious step.
senseless child murder at that.
Yes.
Like Bucky Barnes died died doing what he loved best, killing Nazis. So
that's right. If you're gonna
it was
go,
a patriotic
if you're
death
gonna
on
go,
Bucky's
that's
part.
the way to do it.
Yeah, Jason Todd was just senselessly beaten to death with a crowbar by a clown.
So maybe we'll see that on the big screen.
We can only hope.
That is such a Zack Snyder story.
That's the only
Let's
part
talk
of
about
that
the cast.
whole story I want to see. I want to see that. I
That's
don't
true.
care about
They
anything.
teased it. They teased it in Batman v Superman. But anyway, I want to talk about this cast because it is a who's who of 20-somethings that are really kicking themselves.
Of the aughts, of the 2000s.
These guys, okay, let's run through this. Armie Hammer, better known as the Winklevoss twins in the Social Network, the Winklevi. He would have been Batman, and he would have been Batman while Christian Bale was still Batman, which is, we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a conflict of interest there. He
got
got fitted for the suit, and he got to the point of doing all. He stood like 7'3" with all the beard.
I think he would have been a good Batman,
He would have been an excellent Batman.
this whole cast I actually like. DJ Catrona, he played Superman. He went on to do G.I. Joe Retaliation, and he's in the From Dusk Till Dawn TV series.
I haven't seen any of those.
Megan Gale would have been Wonder Woman.
She looks like Wonder Woman.
She does. She looks like she could pull off a Wonder Woman. Adam Brody was actually probably the most famous of the cast. He would have been
He was in the OC at the time.
He was in the OC. He would have been Barry Allen as the Flash. Well, another guy that was pretty famous, Common, would have been
The rapper. Yeah, it's John Stewart, the only black Green Lantern in the universe.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's the one that Common is going to play.
Is going to, or was going?
Was going
to.
If you're going to make him a Green Lantern,
Yeah, no, I mean it's the only one you can be.
it makes sense. No, that's not the only one you
It's
can be. Why
strange
be
'cause
so limiting? Why be so limiting?
I'm not being limiting. It's just right. I'm not going to
All right.
continue this conversation.
This movie
Common,
had-
why John Stewart is my question to this because within the source material.
Why not Hal Jordan?
No, it's Kyle Rayner who is the Lantern in the stories.
I think it's probably because if you look at that cast,
They
who
already
stands
have
out?
a lot of dorky looking
Come on,
white dudes
there's a
hanging
lot
about the
of
place.
there's a lot of white dudes there.
Yeah.
So John Stewart is the Green Lantern. Listen, he's a good choice. It would have been interesting. I'd like to see the John Stewart take on the character.
I have no care or love for Aquaman, so I don't.
I
care
want
who
to talk
plays him.
about Aquaman because this is a guy that is being typecast. This is his name is Santiago Cabrera. He played Isaac Mendez in the TV show Heroes.
Oh, that's where I know him from.
And I didn't realize that at the time.
No, me neither.
But he does look familiar when you know that.
Yeah, you didn't recognize him when he's not shooting up and painting things.
And he's more recently been in Transformers: The Last Night.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. So that explains why I haven't seen him in a while.
He's done things. Martian Manhunter is.
Karen Little says, "I'm here, Pa. I'm here, Pa." Stephen Gardner is also watching, and that's creepy, but that's okay.
That's all
Who's
right.
this dude, and why is he playing John Jones, Martian Manhunter?
Well, this is.
He looks like an
George
anime
Miller.
character.
No,
come
this
to
is
life.
George Miller's guy. He went on to play Immortan Joe in Mad Max Fury Road, and he was Toe Cutter in the old Mad Max.
Yeah,
series.
I didn't know that's what he looked like when he wasn't,
Besides
tubed up.
Common, this guy stands out because everyone else is like in their 20s, and this guy's obviously he's a
an
veteran.
older gentleman.
He's George Miller's guy.
Surely the most famous one at the time was who was playing Maxwell Lord.
Yes.
It was Jay Baruchel, who was coming off of what was he in at that point?
Well, he did Tropic Thunder.
That was what. Yeah.
He would have been the villain.
Which is strange.
He doesn't look like a villain to me, but I would have liked to have seen it.
I would like to see. I listened to the podcast that he was on where he talked about everything that went
How
wrong.
happy he is. That must have been the day that must have been the day it was announced.
Part of the reason I like.
I don't want to see the day that he found out it was canceled.
Oh no, that's him
Poor
all the
guy.
time though. I feel he's quite happy.
He's the voice of in How to Train Your Dragon. He's the main character.
Yeah, he's not one that inspires confidence or gravitas really. He's Jay Baruchel. I would like to see this because they chose to go with Maxwell Lord instead of Lex Luthor for the DC universe.
Yes. And I give them credit for like getting away from Lex Luthor and the Joker.
And they reinvented the character somewhat because he's just meant to be this kind of shadowy business dude that is on the side.
They had a different take on him. We'll
League.
get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So
Interesting casting.
yeah.
Brave casting, which is entirely the DC way.
I would say that if one thing could have happened that would have paralleled what we saw with Batman v Superman, there is the potential that he could have been like the Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
He would have Eisenberged it.
Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor just had like no gravitas. He was like,
walking about in his Converse, being weird.
He was playing Mark Zuckerberg from the Social Network, basically, as Lex Luthor. So anyway, just to round out the cast, we had Teresa Palmer as Talia Al Ghul, who would have been the second villain, and we had Zoe Kazan
As Iris West.
as Iris West, and she would have been the love interest,
Wally
of course,
West.
to Barry Allen.
Barry Allen. Oh, we'd be the.
She was just in the Big Six, so she's that was.
She's doing fine. She hasn't missed out as a result of this.
But for the most part, this cast
was excellent. It looks phenomenal,
and missed a huge opportunity.
And Armie Hammer by that point had done the Lone Ranger, and he'd done the.
Well, I think he did
Uncle.
Lone Ranger after, Man from Uncle after as well.
Well, those were the two that killed him. Had he done this, I think he would have been a much bigger star than he was.
Interestingly enough, though, in The Man from Uncle, Armie Hammer fights Henry Cavill, who went on to play Superman. So we did get Batman v Superman out of him.
In the worst possible way.
Let's move on to the story. Okay, we know the cast. They're all almost all.
They're all excellent.
20-somethings, pretty well cast. I'm into this cast.
Yeah. Stephen Gardner says, "I love Celebrity Page. It's my favorite entertainment show." Well, thank you for tuning in.
I'm glad you enjoy.
Yes,
thank you for joining us.
It's a sort of mishmash of 4 or 5 different sources. You've got Identity Crisis, Infinite Crisis, and what's the other one?
The OMAC Project and Tower of Babel, which is one that I remember reading that comic in English class in high school instead of the Canterbury Tales.
The Canterbury Tales were way
bad. I really liked it. Was Justice League Tower of Babel. Sorry.
Well, Tower of Babel got turned into Justice League Doom, which is the only remnant of this story left.
I heard that was a terrible movie.
It's an animated film. It's fine. It's functional. It's serviceable. It does the job. I'm going to
tell you the very brief, very brief story summary, and it doesn't get into everything. Batman, dissatisfied with metahumans in the world, creates an army of robots, the OMACs. Romax, to replace the Justice League, only for it to backfire and result in a legion of evil AI robots bent on world domination.
Right. Yeah, creating an army of robots always backfires.
Is it just me, or does that sound exactly like Age of Ultron?
It does. It sounds like everything that should have.
Well, this plot line is so similar to what Avengers 2 did that I guarantee you, if this movie had been made, first of all, it would have changed comic book movies entirely because it would have beat Marvel to the punch.
It would have set a different tone for comic book movies.
But they definitely would have never done the Age of Ultron because it's so similar.
Yeah, it would have forced them out of it. DC could have got the jump in this, and they could have made it so incredibly good if they had stuck to what I think George Miller wanted to do.
And he wanted to make it very faithful to the comic.
Yeah, Jay Baruchel in that podcast that I listened to said, you can't make something for everyone, or because you end up making someone for nobody at all. The way that they were specific about it, that the fact that they didn't have the big name villains, they had this dude,
Maxwell Lord, a guy that comic book people have to Google.
Yeah, I didn't know him. The little known Talia Al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul's daughter. You don't know who that is, and if you do, I'm very surprised.
She's just coasting on the Al Ghul name.
Oh, yeah, them Al Ghuls controlling everything. It's them and the Vanderbilts, isn't it?
That's right.
Right. So yes, metahumans are.
So this skips the origins.
Yeah.
When this movie starts, all the main characters, all the superheroes are well known. They're publicly known. But they've not yet formed a collaborative team.
A league.
They've not a league, if you will. A league bent on justice.
Yeah.
So they would have been publicly known. Basically, world peace has been achieved because they're out there doing their thing. Superman's being super,
Batman's
Wonder Woman's wondering, Batman's
flashing.
So they're all doing their thing. Green Lantern is lanterning.
Greening.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, things are good in the world.
There was a line actually I thought was interesting. Alfred tells Bruce Wayne that crime in Gotham City has been reduced to a nuisance, and that's got to kill Batman.
Yeah, because that's his
What's he going to do with his time?
Absolutely nothing. Take up polo.
Yes.
Look after one of the many children he's adopted and subsequently let to die.
That's true. That's true.
And literally anything else.
Their blood is on your hands, Bruce. So one thing that I thought was interesting is that Batman's suit in this would have been a little bit different. I guess we kind of saw it in The Dark Knight Rises with Christian Bale. It would have been an exosuit where
slightly
it would
more
have been
powered.
A little, cybernetic,
Yeah, because if you spend the past 15, 20 years jumping off rooftops and getting kicked in the face, it's going to take its toll on you eventually.
You're going to need a walker.
Yeah, there's a very fancy, expensive billionaire walker that fights crime.
So, anyway, this...
So yes, the story. all these robots, they become self-aware and they take over the world.
One thing I do want to say about this is that there would have been a cool scene. Maxwell Lord had psychic powers, and he would have taken control of Superman's mind and used him as a weapon. And there's a scene where he would fight Wonder Woman. And supposedly, just like hinting at the Zack Snyder
Maxwell
to come,
Lord was warping his mind to make Superman think that Wonder Woman was actually Doomsday coming to
So you see this scene here. This is a storyboard. First of all, I want to credit JL Doco on Twitter. They have they were working on a documentary. I think it's in indefinite hold, just like this movie was about this. But anyway, this is a storyboard from the production, and Superman is breaking Wonder Woman's wrist. So George Miller was not going to hold back.
He wasn't fucking about. Like, George Miller is... I'm going to go on to this again. He was exactly the right person to do this.
So...
The script was perfect, the cast was...
And it's just a shame it didn't happen.
No, because it's entirely what DC's meant to be, risk-taking and dark and
the last thing about the
gritty
story, before we get to the production and what went wrong, is that this would have been bookended with a funeral, where it starts with a funeral, you don't see who died, and in the end you find out, spoiler alert, for a movie that we're never going to see, it was The Flash.
Oh no!
Barry Allen dies, and Wally West becomes
takes over,
the Flash.
takes the mantle.
And so it actually would have had, like, it would have had weight to it.
Yeah, it would have had a nice kind of arc.
Unlike, say,
story
Avengers, or Captain America Civil War, where they're afraid to kill a character, Justice League would have went right out of the gate, killing a major character.
Do that thing. Expendability. The idea of mortality within superheroes. They're not gods. Like, kill them off occasionally. That's
well, there's so many of them.
That's why I'll always
look
like
at how many people
more.
in that cast.
How many people?
You definitely you can lose a couple.
Yes, you can lose.
All right. So about the production, and I think that here's actually this was a photo. This is a candid of the production. They all assembled. This was going to be shot in Australia. And the team went down there, and at least the main characters, Armie Hammer and DJ Catrona, they were there for months.
They were already doing the...
They were spending months practicing, training to become Batman and Superman. And they were all just chilling in Australia. And
Jeffrey Hayes on Facebook, I am watching in Lyons, New York. Hello. Hello, Jeffrey Hayes.
Hello, Jeffrey.
That's all we have to say to you.
Invite your friends.
Please, yes.
And actually, because it was in Australia, Weta, who
is Lord of the Rings, isn't it?
That is Peter Jackson's company. They were doing the costuming, and it was possible they would end up doing the effects. So you would have had the company that did the effects for Lord of the Rings working on this movie, which is I'm just adding more like tantalizing talent to this. It's just adding up to something that would have been incredible.
It looked like it was too big to fail. Why did it though? It was the writer's strike, wasn't it?
Okay, so it was announced in February 2007.
Right.
And George Miller signed on in September 2007. January...
Off the riding the high coast of Babe,
Happy Feet 2.
Oh, Happy Feet 2.
There it is. Big announcement. George Miller to lead Justice League. It's a huge deal. And then come January 2008, there's a writer's strike looming. So the Warner Brothers thought that the script needed some work. But that was impossible.
Yeah.
Writers, whenever the writers go on strike, none of the writers are allowed to write or they'll be disbarred. Like, it will be a career ender. So there was no way for Warner to
actually tweak the script or do anything to it at all.
And so it was put on indefinite hold.
Which is always a good thing for anything that, you know, is time sensitive and needs
They
to be
allowed the cast options to lapse, which means we're not going to hold you. If you get another job, go take the other job. And then they were planning for a mid-April shoot.
Which didn't happen.
A mid-2009 release. But then there was another thing. Australia, there's the announcement when they said it was supposed to happen in 2009. So Australia, actually, they had just put together this film board, and they're going to give generous tax credits, supposedly.
That's the same sort of thing that happened in Hawaii, wasn't it?
It happens
we were
all over.
talking about Marvel's Inhumans, and I was wondering why it was all filmed in Hawaii, in this like one parking lot in Hawaii.
Money. It's a very scenic parking lot.
It's beautiful.
If you're gonna visit a parking lot,
hanging about
visit the parking lots in Hawaii.
It was in Oahu. It was just outside of a Kauahu burger.
So
it was a nice parking lot.
This fell through. Politics got in the way.
Yeah.
The writer's strike gets in the way, and then politics from Australia gets in the way.
Australian politics ruined.
Apparently, there's a quote here. When George Miller was asked what went wrong, he said there was a writer's strike.
I want to do a dramatic reading of this.
Okay, do a dramatic.
There was a writer's strike. was some legislation with a tax rebate to make it in Australia. It was the first film that came up, and there was a debate about whether it was Australian content, even though I was driving it. It didn't have to be Australian content, but Australian control. But there was a board that...
You gotta be scared when it's Australian control.
Australian control.
I can just see Mad Max now.
But there was a board that no longer exists that government cobbled together from people who knew nothing about the film industry. And they voted, and it struck it down by 1 vote. We were all ready. Once that happened and the writer's strike happened, it fell apart. And that's a sad story.
One Australian man...
Or woman.
Or woman. You know who you are.
If you're watching, which you undoubtedly are.
You doomed Justice League.
So at 7:45 in the morning.
So anyway, what happens is then they announce they're moving the production to Canada. George Miller doesn't want it, but it's happening that way.
That's where he's from. He's from a place called Chinchilla.
Really?
Yep. He's from Chinchilla in New South Wales.
Where are my chinchillans at? Where are my chinchillans at? All right. So, but after they moved it to Canada, that's when they announced the title. So they still had faith it would happen.
Yeah.
This was in March 2008. They announced it's Justice League Mortal.
When did Dark Knight come out?
Justice League Mortal announced in 2008. Iron Man May 2008. Dark Knight July 2008. So it was like there was a lot of superhero news back then.
Because once
there's a really sad story though. So DJ Catrona, he
Yes.
was supposed to be Superman.
I know that's a person's name, but he sounds like a really bad Florida club DJ.
He does sound like a bad Florida club DJ, but he was supposed to be Superman. He would have been a household name. He was actually standing outside his house in LA with his little bag, which I assume was blue and red.
Yeah, keeping branding, and the cab pulled up.
The cab pulls up, and he gets a call. He gets a call while the cab is pulling up that says, DJ, I've got some bad news for you. You're not flying to Australia. In fact, you're not flying anywhere.
No, Australia doesn't exist anymore. Batman and Superman is canceled. Go home.
Just stay in LA where people will take good care of you.
We'll call you.
Right, we'll call you. So
that sounds awful.
And the cabbie
spent so many months training,
the cabbie
lifting
says,
weights.
I'm here to pick you up to take you to the airport. And he says, No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yes, I am getting the no.
So anyway, this was devastating to this young crew, and they literally found out about this days before shooting was to begin.
Yeah, and the subsequent timing of events after that didn't help. The Dark Knight was phenomenal, and that was the Batman film. Then DC went ahead and did Green Lantern.
Green Lantern was 2011, and then Avengers was 2012. Just to put this in perspective, Avengers only came out in 2012. That would have been what? That would have been 3 years before or after this movie.
Which it's unfortunate that they missed the jump on this one, as I would have loved to have seen it done properly.
So the other thing,
I'll get onto my hatred of Zack
So
Snyder
the other thing that maybe went wrong here, we know about Australia, we know about you know who you are, we know about the writer's strike, but there's a question as to Warner. Did Warner pull back their support for this project because The Dark Knight was coming out? This was right after
and Christian Bale
Heath Ledger had just died. So this was like, The Dark Knight was all anyone was talking about. It has Oscar buzz. Chris Nolan is one of the greatest auteurs of our time that was proven in this genre.
You think he's one of the greatest auteurs of our time?
I think so. I think so. He does really impressive creative work, unlike anything else that people make.
I like him as a director. I find him just a bit up himself.
He probably is. Because he's great.
But if you're one of the greatest auteurs of our generation,
like
you would be
West.
up yourself, I suppose.
He's the
Kanye West of movie making. That's a
no,
horrible thing to say about another
I'm
human
sorry,
being.
Chris
Why
Nolan.
would you? The Kanye West of any profession.
So Christian Bale had a quote. Christian Bale had a quote. He said,
apart from when he was shouting at Soundman.
About this, he said, it'd be better if it doesn't tread on the toes of what we're doing, and it would be better if it comes out after Batman 3, which would have been The Dark Knight Rises. So I'm getting the sense that your money makers are saying, hey, what about us over here? You want us to keep doing what we're doing? You want to keep the ball rolling?
Yeah, let's shovel this one under the carpet a little bit.
Let's kill this thing.
It was meant to be like, it talks about different ways to do this thing as well. It was meant to be motion capture.
That was another thing. So there was a talk of like Beowulf came out.
Yeah, with Ray Winston.
So there was a talk of it being more
As the
motion
Cockney accented
capture.
Viking man.
And if you didn't see Beowulf,
Beowulf. I'm a Viking. I've come here to kill the Gorgon.
300
Grendel.
was kind of like this.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting way to do it, seeing as it is a
I think they
comic
probably
book.
This was just rumored. They may have not gone in that direction.
What was it Jay Baruchel said about this movie?
It sucks it didn't get made.
Yeah, apart from that, but it's
But
like
at least I was in How to Train Your Dragon and How to Train
that's
Your Dragon
probably
2.
that's a word for it. I can't remember what exactly he said about it, but it was pertinent at the time.
But also another thing we have to keep in mind is this movie would have introduced a new Batman and a new Superman when we already had Christian Bale's Batman,
and
we already had Brandon
Routh's
Routh as Superman, and we already had Tom Welling
as Superman,
as Clark Kent.
Superboy Clark person.
So it would have been pretty crowded for the DC multiverse.
Yeah, and it's fine. They own the TV shows now. They are far and away much better than the Marvel TV properties. It just makes me sad, and I really want to talk about how awful.
It's funny you should talk about that, because now I want to get to the Roddy rant.
All right.
Hashtag Roddy rant. This is where we talk about what could have been versus what is. And I'm just going to preface this by saying that I don't dislike Zack Snyder and his work.
No, I know you don't. That's
Zack Snyder is really good at doing certain things.
Yeah.
As a director, and just for those of you watching, if you're wondering who Zack Snyder is the director of Man of Steel.
Yep.
And Batman v Superman,
Yep.
and he mostly directed the upcoming Justice League movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's the architect of the
300.
current DC universe.
Yeah.
And Zack Snyder is an incredibly visual director who's done good things.
Yep.
But, hashtag Roddy rant, go.
When I woke up this morning, I thought to myself, I'm not going to hate Zack Snyder today. That, like every other day I've tried to do it, I failed. I was watching a famous clip from South Park where they bring in different directors into a room, and one's M. Night Shyamalan, and he says, "Oh, what if it turns out they're all aliens?" And that's not story structure. That's just a plot twist. And then Michael Bay comes in, and the plane goes. That's not story structure. That's just special effects. I don't know the difference. We know you don't. Mel Gibson comes in and presents a proper story. Zack Snyder is the modern version for superheroes of Michael Bay. He thinks that fancy, shiny is good.
And also violence.
And
Let's
also
not forget the extreme violence.
But it's not just it's extreme gratuitous violence. It's not purposeful violence. Like to illustrate. The truly messed up nature of the DC universe. It's just, violence is there, and we're gonna make it R-rated. No, I hate you, Zack Snyder. I want to meet you just so I can strike you.
No, Zack Snyder. I respect your work.
He
come on our show.
No, and that's what does it. He's like, I would come on if that Scottish guy didn't threaten to kill me.
I just want to say,
it's what Jay Baruchel described this as George Miller. It's Miller doing Snyder.
Yes.
Right,
But George Miller has more credibility when it comes to story.
A proven track record and a wider palette. He directed a miniseries in Australia about cricket that won awards. It's one of
Wait a second.
Wait
a second. How have I missed this miniseries about cricket?
Yeah, one of Hugo.
Where have I been?
Hugo Weaving's Mr. Smith and Elrond from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it was called Bodyline, and it was about the 1932-1933 Ashes test.
I gotta put this in my notes.
Dude, it's riveting. It's all about how the English were cheating at cricket, and he won awards for that. He did Dismissal, which was a court drama, a heavyweight court drama in Australia. He did Lorenzo's Oil, which was an emotionally tapping film, also featuring Nick Nolte, who we all know was voted sexiest man in 1992.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was.
1992 was a hell of a year.
For Nick Nolte.
Was a hell of a year.
And women everywhere.
Anyway,
all right, sorry.
So anyway, that's your Zack Snyder rant. But for those of you who are maybe Team Roddy on this, I just want to remind everyone that the new Justice League movie coming out, it started as a Zack Snyder movie, and Joss Whedon, who helmed Avengers, came on board to maybe course correct.
Dramaturgy-ish kind of.
Yeah, so it remains to be seen how Zack Snyder, how Batman v Superman.
There's only one way that this entire debacle, I think, can be solved in the DCEU. It's that at the end of this upcoming film, it is established that there is another parallel universe of like Earth 2 or Earth 3 or whatever, where a completely separate iteration of the cast, same cast, but with all the mistakes that were made in the first few films taken out, there should be a poll, there should be like a Twitter vote, how should we change? And then the two universes smash together, and then we follow the second universe for the rest of it.
Which is seriously the most comic book thing that could possibly happen to these movies.
There's precedent within it. Like, I don't see why it couldn't happen.
But
that
also,
for me is the only way.
Warner has been
saved.
teasing this because they announced a Joker movie with Martin Scorsese.
With Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese would be behind this Joker
But
movie.
who's going to play the Joker, though?
Well, the rumor is Leonardo DiCaprio could be
Leonardo DiCaprio
You didn't hear
as
this?
No!
They said it would not be Jared Leto.
Good.
So anyway, DC is actually potentially exploring standalone stories now that the universe they've been crafting is a little shaky.
Yeah, I want the universe that they've been crafting to fall apart and die in a fire.
I'm gonna withhold my judgment until I see Justice League.
All right, cool.
But in the meantime, look at what we've discussed, what could have been. And maybe George Miller still gets involved.
I would like,
George Miller is still out there doing great work, and he could still come back to this
Once
universe.
my assassins find and dispatch Zack Snyder, then George Miller can take over.
And the last thing I will note to the cast, the would-be cast of George Miller's Justice League, we're so sorry. This really sucks for you. This is one of the great crimes in superhero history. And Armie Hammer could have been Batman.
He could have been Batman. He could have been a completely different career. He could have been winning Oscars.
Every day he wakes up and looks in the mirror, he says,
fucking Lone Ranger. Why?
He says,
That's why he says,
I'm not Batman. All right, and on that note,
that was a thing that we did. That was fun. Please. My name's Roddy McInnes. Please follow, like, share, get in touch, harass me. He's Luke Watson. Harass him even more. We'll be back at some point, won't we?
We will be back at some point.
Talking about what? No idea.
Unless they pull the plug days before we're supposed to.
I'll be waiting outside my house just about to get in a cab, and you'll call me up, and you're like, "Yeah, you're not coming." No, cancel production.
That shoot we were going to do in Australia, it's off. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.